I'm back working on the grill. Proving to be a little bit of a challenge because these aren't necessarily straight with this, and they're not necessarily curved with this. See? So what I had to do is you look right down here, I added this piece to the top of the part I made to give this better stability up and down. Now it's right where it should be. Then I had to, if you can kind of see that this is bowed out and in here. So now I got to pull this section out so this flows better and the grill will fit better. Because if I try to put the grill in its correct spot back here, kind of see that moving right through here. It's hitting right in here, so this has got to get pulled out just a little bit. This side I pulled out, but not as far because I didn't know how far I needed to go, so I got to pull this farther out. And a good way to tell is on the grill. So you can see that this is kind of close here. Then you come to this side, and there's a bigger gap. So this whole thing needs to be pulled out. I've been struggling with this side fitting the middle piece. As you can see, I've used some heat here to try to pull this back in. And as you can see, there's a little bit of gap discrepancies here. And it's actually the same on this side. So it's pretty troubling actually, because I need to get this, so this bolts right in and these slip in and no pressure put anywhere, because when this is painted, it might have some fill on it. When I put this in, I don't want to have to pull this out, bulge this, and then possibly crack my bodywork, right? And that's the same with this side. The other thing that I did do here, this gap here along the grill is pretty good, because there's going to be a trim piece that goes here, but this was pushed in. You couldn't really tell. Other than, I mean, you look down it, if you look down it, you could see that it come and then it slightly curve in right through here. So I had to actually pull this out to get this gap right where I want it. It might have happened, if this is the original fender, it might have happened when this happened. I don't really know. The other thing I've been really working on is making sure that these are in the proper spot. The hood is not on all the way yet. You can see this big gap here. Now there's going to be a gap. You kind of want it so when you open the hood, you don't scrape the fender, right? So you can see the gap there, and you can see that the bumper mount is pretty close to the center of this, right? I pointed that out in one of my last videos. So I came over here and I corrected it here too. So now this one is pretty close to the center, maybe not exactly perfect, but I see there's a little dent here still that needs to be pulled out, and it's pretty close. Before, it was way over here. And then you look at the hood, see it's got a tight gap here. That's actually probably too tight, because now when you pull this down, pull the lever down, you're going to be dragging right on the fender, and I don't want to do that. So there's some adjustment on this fender still I got to do, even though I've been adjusting it. But before I go any further with that, I'd like to get this grill kind of straightened around a little bit better, right? So then I can take the fenders off. I can patch where the holes were originally, and I can do the same on this, and then I can put the bolt holes and bolts where I want them. And then you can see right here there's a mark I marked with my marker. This is pushed in right here. So what I did is I took a clamp behind there and clamped it so it's tight, but just goes to show that I gotta hammer and dolly that out. some of this isn't so bad hammering and doweling. This here, I needed heat, and I built a fancy high-tech tool that gave me an arc, and I would put that on there like that, and then I could clamp it. I could run a clamp here to the outside of here, like that, right like that, and then I heated it up, and that's how I got the arc over here. I did it on both, but this one I didn't do as much as this one. So now I got to do this one more. So I'm gonna take this grill half back out. I might take the whole thing apart, I'm not sure. And then the other thing I have done now is I trimmed this out. So now it's straight across. It's still edgy. I still need to weld it. You can see there's not a whole lot of weld in there yet. Even that gap down in here, I got to weld all that up, and that'll come. And I did some other welds on there too. And this weld, I had some little welds here. Of course, this broke when I bent this. That's okay, because I got more, and I got to pull this out now anyway. So just metal, just metal. So this is where I'm at for this grill nose assembly thing. And I'll get some more done. So here I did it. I pulled this. You can see it's pulled out a lot more right through here. It's a lot tighter down inside here. You see this is broken, but right in that area there. Still needs to come a little bit more. This area right here, you can see it kind of wrinkled a little here, so I gotta hammer and dolly that out. Then I started working on this side here. This needed to pull out. Well, I pulled it out right there, but I gotta take this all off and hammer and dolly right through this area right here to pull that out, to get you can see the grill hits right there. And then I'll pull this all out too, and then I'll weld it together. But that's what we have to do. You know, after all these years, this thing has been, you know, beat on. It's a nose, it gets beat on. So it's probably kind of a boring video, but that's what I'm doing so far. Back at the grill, it's kind of a long process, but you can see I've got some clamps, and I actually have a zippy tie. So here's what I ended up doing. The centerpiece was fitting fine, but the grill seemed to need to be pulled out. And although I heated this up and pulled this a little bit, because that's where the pressure was being put when the grill came out to here, to the center. What I really thought about after I started doing this, I'm like, well, I could continue making this work, or I think the more correct way to do it was to adjust this chin. So here's what I did. I took that chin that I made and I cut it right around that curve, and I pushed this chin piece in, okay, and reset this. Now the grill doesn't put pressure. It rests on it, but it really doesn't put a lot of pressure on right through here. Even though now I got to hammer and dolly this a little bit to smooth it out, and I got to weld right in here, but it doesn't really put the pressure on it like it was originally. Even though I made this the same as the original one, or as close as I could get it, there might have been something that happened that maybe pushed this whole thing in, or I don't really know. Maybe the old one was out like that. That's the way it is. I don't know, but I wanted it to fit a little bit better than what it did. So here's what I did. Like I say, I did that. So now I'm trying to actually fit this grill to the centerpiece. And as you can see, there's a slight gap between here and there. And that goes all the way up. And then it gets a little bigger up here, because I think that's what it's supposed to do, because this piece actually goes under. And that's the way the screw bracket inside here is forcing it to do, where the screw brackets that screw these two together are kind of forcing these out like that. But this grill didn't really fit very well, although it's probably the better of the two. It had all the brackets and stuff. I had to replace the bottom. There's a bottom bracket here. I had to cut the old one off and put a new one on because it was so weak. So I put something heavier on there, and maybe I'll show that. I had to make cuts. You can see in here, there's a few cuts. There's 3 of them here, and I know I have there's another one up here, and there's cuts on the other side too, to help bring this portion of the grill out. The grill gets bolted on down here and up here, but in the middle it kind of sagged this way. So I made some cuts, clamped it. I actually zippy tied it so it was going to stay there. Then I'll take a welder and I'll just tack weld those slits right where they're at. Okay. So now what I had to also do is when you come up here, you can see this bracket here. Well, that one didn't quite line up. It was a little high. So I put a slit right here. So that would make this bracket be able to do this. I lengthened the slot a little bit to give me a little more breathing room. And now it's right on. So now I can push this or whatever I need to do to make this tight, which is pretty tight already. And then I just tack weld that. And then this other bracket, where'd it go? This bracket here. When you push this bracket in, it's getting close to the hole. See, the hole is right there, but it's not quite lined up, so I still got to do some modifying to that bracket. And you can see, you know, I got some slits in here, and this is what this is about, to try to help form the grill to this middle piece, and then I'll tack weld it where it's supposed to be. So that's where I'm at so far. I did start to, I got this screwed in. It's all tight, this middle piece, and it's centered. I measured, from here to there, there to there. Made sure this is all centered so this piece will fit exactly where it needs to be. Now you can see it's tight here. It's got a little bit of a gap up here. So that's where that inside bracket will come into play and kind of help push this a little bit out. Same with the bracket down here. But you can see down here is like good. So I just kind of wanted to give an update on how much of a pain in the butt this grill has been. This is all part of building a street rodder, building a hot rodder, muscle car, whatever. This is all kind of part of it. But these parts are so old and they've been beat on and you don't know where they originated from. So this is the kind of thing I have to do. These grills were not part of this truck originally. I don't know what the story is on these things. So, metal moves. So, and maybe this nose piece here isn't quite exactly, I know there's a little dent that needs to be worked out here. So that's that so far. After I tack that all up and get some welding done on it, I will go to the next side. Continuing on, you see now I took the clamp and the zip tie off. Why I did that was because when you come in here, you can see I welded the slots, tack welded the slots. Now these are sloppy because there's rust on there and rust doesn't weld. So that all needs to be cleaned off and then welded proper. The other thing I did was, you can see that there, I clamped that bracket down and you can see that there's a hole that it is actually right there where the bolt is supposed to go through. So it's pretty close. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that down a little bit more. I'm going to make that slot a little bit longer so it'll accept the bolt easily. And I did tack the top one too, right there. So that should stay in place. But now this is a lot nicer coming down through here. The gap is a little funny going this way. As you can see, it's tighter here, a little looser there. Not going to be too worried about that at this point. This is getting to be pretty stiff, but right up in here is the bracket is actually down here pushing, not up here. So I will correct that with body work. We'll do a little hammer on this a little bit, just to kind of bang it over just a little bit. And when I go through my body process, I'll make sure that's all straightened out, whether doing a little bit more metal work or a little fill work, because the whole truck's gonna have fill in it. So anyway, so that is this half of the grill. Now it's taken me hours to get to this level, this point. However, it looked good before. I just wasn't happy with it. Now I'm a little more happy with it. This gap now seems to be pretty consistent, and it flows in like it's supposed to up there, and pretty consistent all the way down. That's what I'm looking for. So I will continue on with the other half. I need to make a couple brackets for that. I will cut this off. You'll see that when I do this, I'm not gonna roll this, I'm gonna weld it. So I'm gonna weld it in here, and I'm gonna weld it on the other side, and I'm gonna grind form it. That's how I'm gonna do that. There's a little bit of a gap here. It's not real terrible. So I'm just gonna grind and weld this thing into the shape I want. This is kind of a hard piece to fabricate because it's compound. It's got curves going this way. It's obviously V'd, and it's curved this way on both sides. So, and I'm making it out of a pretty heavy material is the other thing. So it's a tough one to make. But I got it there. In my opinion, it's still fine, still good. Like I said, I'll just grind weld. You'll never know that wasn't one piece with this here. So there we go. So now you see that I put the other side in. Little bit of a pain here. It's not done yet because if you notice right here, how big that gets and then how small it gets. So right here, this area, I've got to pull that out. The hard thing about pulling that out is if you just pulled it out, it would just make a bigger gap. So you have to actually pull it at an angle this way. So I'll be working on that next. And then I noticed that this has a pretty good gap right through here that I'm gonna have to probably mess around with. The other thing I noticed too is the gap from the beginning here to here and from here to there is different. Because from the factory, the space from this horizontal to this horizontal is a 1/4 inch difference than this horizontal to that horizontal. So this grill side I'm going to take apart, and I'm going to have to take this, I'm going to have to bring that down just a little bit. And that'll be pretty good on this grill half then. Then I'll be, I'm going to be taking this off so I can work on this a little bit better. So I can really get this cut the way I want it, pulled the way I want it, and then weld it up the way I wanted it again. So that's the grill this far. And like I said, I'm going to move on to this now. You can also, just a side note, I trimmed off the bottom of this nose, so I started welding it. and that'll all come together good. So needless to say, this grill is a little bit to try to get to fit. Okay, I'm continuing on this side, and as you can see, I'm getting it to fit well. Now I got all the screws that bolt to this lined up and actually screws in to here without being too far away and everything. And I did have to cut some slots up in here. So I pulled it, tacked it, welded it, got it stuck in place, heated it up, and just let it cool. So that way it'll kind of take the stress out of it and want to remain where it's at. Now is what I'm doing is there was a gap up here that was a little too wide, and it just kept wanting to push over. So I'm clamping it. I just heated it all up inside through here. And now hopefully when it all cools, it'll remain. Otherwise, I have, I made a new clamp down here, or a tab down here, and I elongated the one up there. So that should do it, be good. So now this side should look pretty darn close to the other side. And I'll put both sides in just one more time just to make sure after I get that all cooled off. So I think this will wrap up this video of fitting the grill completely together. I know I had other stuff that would kind of get it there, but now I'm a little bit better shape. I got this where I want it. There will have to be a little bit of body work here. I'm gonna have to probably pucker that up just a little bit to help follow this, but it's nice and snug through here the way I want it. Then the other thing I did was this side, this grill came out, this piece, this horizontal part came out farther than this side, and now it's a little closer. The gap between here and here was about a 1/4 inch different than the other side. This was spread. This is barely up here. This all fits relatively well through here. I mark it that this has to come in just a little bit. But overall, the fitment, now all the screws are in. So the grill is pretty much all bolted in. There is a little bit of a adjustment here that I can still tighten up, and same with this side. Same with the bottom, very bottoms. These sides are loose because I know I can pull these. I know I can pull these out a little bit, but the main bolts here, screwing the sides to this, is all tight now. So this is the way it fits. Now, it didn't, but as you notice through this whole challenge, all the way down, I just kind of rough ground this down to give you an idea that this is kind of the way it's going to look. I might round this even more, and in order to do that, you have to weld on the inside, which I've done. I welded on the inside and on the outside. So if you take more material off here, you still got a good backing of material back here that's weld. So anyway, this is the way it looks. Now, these here, you can see, are a lot straighter with this now on both sides, coming all the way down. And you see the heat marks. I got heat marks here too. And what happens is you clamp these here and you heat this up so it's kind of cherry red, particularly on this flange area inside here. That'll help relax the stress out of there. And that's what I was having some of my issue with. These would start to go off in other directions, and so clamping them, heating them, that's what got it all tightened back the way it should be. So there's the grill. That's where I'm going to leave it for now. I still have to do a little bit of welding on it and things like that. but any more metal work that has to be done will be done in the bodywork phase, because that's when things are going to get completely fit. One other thing I did want to point out was the gap here, from here to there. It's a little taller here, a little wider here. That's what's supposed to be, and then it gets thinner down. And then I did the same here. It's a little wider here, and it gets thinner as we go down. I wanted those to match as close as I could possibly get them. And it's pretty close. And I wanted to make sure the horizontals were in line. A problem with doing that is the spacing between these are not always the same. So you can only get it so good without tearing the whole thing apart and making it exact. I'm not going to do that. I think after those get painted, gets chromed and everything, you'll never know it. It'll look good. I did have to fix a couple of these. See, I got a kind of a circle on there. This was bent down, so now I got it bent up or flat, straight like it's supposed to. Anyway, that's the grill, and that's my whole trials and tribulations of this thing. It wasn't the easiest thing to do. It just takes time. It's not that it's really hard. You just got to think about what's going on. So there it is.